Good afternoon. This is Beyond the Headlines. I'm DJ Moises. The Binaliw landfill collapse did not just bury homes, it exposed systemic cracks in how we manage waste, regulate risk, and protect communities. Now, Cebu is exploring waste to energy or WTE technology as an alternative to traditional landfills. But before we talk about that, let's honor the 36 who died in the tragedy. 41 days ago, a large section of the Binalio landfill collapsed after days of heavy rainfall. The accumulated waste shifted and slid downwards, burying homes near the dump site. The collapse happened in the day, catching residents off guard, including workers. There were 36 fatalities, including children. The Cebu City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office led rescue operations. Police, fire personnel, barangay responders, and volunteers from the different local government units joined search and retrieval efforts. Heavy equipment was used to clear tons of compacted waste. But if we recall, 72 hours lapsed and close to 40 people are still missing. And we ask questions. Why? This wasn't soil, it was compacted garbage layered over years. And when it collapsed, tons of mixed waste such as plastic, metal, mud, water buried homes and an office. Cebu City Mayor Nestor Archibald confirmed that initial financial assistance and burial support were provided to the bereaved families. He also said local agencies such as DSWD and DOLE, the city government, and the landfill operators would work together on livelihood support for both bereaved families and displaced workers. But there was no call for accountability. This is a sharp contrast to the statement the mayor made when a 23-year-old entrepreneur, Kingston Cheng, died a month later, which was at February 8th. No? Ang Binalio was January 8th, and then ang katong hit and run incident happened February 8th, which was just a month later. And the mayor called for accountability specific to this incident. And he was right in calling for justice because it is a hit and run and a clear criminal offense under the Philippine law. The real question here isn't whether justice should be called for about that incident, because it absolutely should, and it should be done swiftly also. But the question is, should the language of justice and accountability be equally strong when system failures also led to 36 deaths? Whether it is about one life lost in a reckless act or dozens lost in a structural failure, accountability should be consistent. Recovering bodies from that environment was slow, if you remember, extremely dangerous, and technically complex. And if I remembered it correctly, 24 hours after we reported the incident, at that time, there were still 36, and some people would say there were still 38 missing. So at that point, 24 hours passed after the collapse, there was even no clear number just yet about the number of people who were exactly buried and were missing. And from what we gathered then in several conversations, rescuers had to carefully remove debris, no, without causing another slide. Because if we recall, these are piles of trash that is as high as about a 20 to 24 stories building. Now, so that's how high the pile was. So there were close to 40 people then during that time. 72 hours after the incident, 40 people, around 40 people still fighting for oxygen in layers of compacted garbage soaked by rain, unstable, heavy shifting. And we can just imagine the air would have been thick with stench of decomposing waste, methane, and decay. And they remained in that situation until all 36 of them eventually died. It was only on January 18 days later, when all the 36 who died in the tragedy was fully accounted for. Among them is James Carl Andrino, and he was 25 years old. We tried to reach his family for comment, but there was no response anymore. Perhaps because they wanted him to just rest in peace. But like Kingston Cheng, he was also a good son. James had been working at the landfill for just over a month. He was a mechanical engineering technology graduate. James graduated with honors, earning more academic awards than his brother Lupe. James had previously worked abroad, and he just returned to the Philippines late November of 2025. While he was waiting for documents and travel arrangement so he could return overseas, and this time to the United Kingdom where his brother Lupe was based. But because the good son that he was, he also wanted to earn money while waiting. And so he decided to work at Prime Waste Solutions. He was among the close to 40 people that were buried. His body was recovered only around 4 p.m. the following day, nearly 24 hours after the landfill collapsed. He was the second victim retrieved. And today is his 40th day. And now this led to more questions, even aside from why that we asked earlier. Because in the first place, why was there still an open dump site operating in the first place? And all our guests, starting from Attorney Lix Garganera, Councilor Joel Garganera, and Councilor Dave Tumulak, and even when we guested Mayor Nestor Archibald, all of them confirmed that Binaliw was not a landfill. It was a dump site. So why was there still an open dump site operating in the first place? Under Republic Act 9003, if we recall, open dump sites such as Binaliw are prohibited. Controlled sanitary landfills require engineering safeguard. And as what our guests have explained when they guested the show, all of them said that in a landfill's context, there should have been a catchment to prevent the contamination of water and soil due to the leachate. No? Ang leachate mo ni ang duga sa garbage. And they all confirmed that this was not the case in Binaliw. What happened actually were piles of garbage. In a nutshell, we can call all of them a dump site. Binaliw is a dump site. Garbage were just dumped. Now, controlled sanitary landfills require engineering safeguards, no? So the question here now then, because Binaliw has been operating since 2017 and then its peak use started in 2019, was a proper risk and hazard assessment conducted? And it's just sad to say that 41 days later, we still do not have a concrete answer to this question. The other one, which also remained unanswered, is why there a geotechnical evaluation of the slope's stability. Now, it was a common knowledge that Cebu went through earthquake and also typhoon. And this should have been performed, not necessarily because of the earthquake or the typhoon, but because this is a requirement. Was a proper risk and hazard assessment conducted? Because 24 hours after the incident, we spoke to some of the volunteers, and what they said was they had difficulty because of the collapsed structure, which was metal in nature. So lisod siya iirog, no? And then mas dangerous po siya for the volunteers to crawl underneath because they were not also very sure about the structural integrity. So basin mo result pa siya into more death. We also recall that methane gas was also mentioned several times, no, which was also dangerous. But if proper risk and hazard assessment were conducted before the incident, these hazards could have been identified, no? And katong question nila nga wala gid intawoy equipment, no? That's why it took them over 72 hours, no? Just to retrieve and eventually declare, no, account all the 36, no, to have eventually perished because walay equipment, which is supposed to be part of the risk and hazard assessment. Because from this assessment, there's a corresponding countermeasures that should have been in place. The other one is were there regular structural integrity inspections, especially after the heavy rains. Were residential zones allowed? Why were residential zones allowed to close in an active dump site? No? And were contingency and evaluation protocols in place? And these are not political questions. These are governance questions. This tragedy, just like those who perished during the flood in December and the tragic death of Kingston Cheng, demands answers. No? Beyond the headlines, and Uncensored welcomed the perspective of the Cebu City government, the Department of Natural Resources or DNR, and all other relevant agencies because responsible discourse requires every institution entrusted with public welfare to have the opportunity to be heard. Because 41 days after Binaliw tragedy, today is not about conflict. Today is about clarity. And just to give you a rundown of the committees that have been formed since then, so DNR formally created an independent multi-sectoral investigation team to look into the landfill collapse, including technical officials, academics, and civil society representatives. And Councilor Garganera actually gave an update regarding this when he was in Beyond the Headlines. And the purpose is to determine the specific causes of the collapse, evaluate environmental compliance and engineering conditions, and recommend rehabilitation and long-term solid waste solution. So, kumusta naman ni siya 41 days after the tragedy. Now, another committee was also formed by the National Bureau of Investigation, NBI Region 7. And they also launched, NBI also launched its own probe into the tragedy without waiting for formal complaint due to the severity of the incident. So, kumusta naman po ni siya? No? So, we would like to hear updates also coming from the NBI, how this assessment and investigation is transpiring, no? Considering, again, that it's been 41 days, no, after the Binaliw tragedy. Now, the tragedy also caught Senate and legislative interest. So, separate lawmakers, including Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, filed a resolution seeking a Senate inquiry into the collapse, signaling interest in a broader legislative probe into solid waste management and regulatory gaps. Other senators also urged probes into systemic failures of the solid waste framework following the tragedy. So, kumusta naman sir ang status ani? Now, the Cebu City government has also acknowledged the DENR-led probe is still ongoing and said that there was no set timeline yet for the findings, but it's been 41 days already. The city said it was waiting for DENR's result to guide decisions in reopening the facility or future waste disposal plans. And when Mayor Archibald actually guested in Beyond the Headlines, he said that part of the possibility that they are exploring is reopening Binaliw again using a 3-hectare space within the facility. And he said at that time that the plan was for that to really operate as a true landfill, not just a dump site. No? So there were also internal discussions locally in Cebu about how the city council's own fact-finding or investigation should proceed, because as we can see, as we have heard, there were differing views on the scope and the leadership. And correct me if I'm wrong, but after this conversation that happened in the city council, I did not hear any update eventually whether they should proceed with the probe or not. No? So the questions actually remains. No? Were there lapses in hazard assessment as required under environmental regulations? Were safety protocols in place? Have reforms been implemented to prevent this form of happening again? Because investigations are not just about forming committees, they are about conclusions, they are about accountability, they are about action. 41 days later, there are still more questions than answers. And today, we are still asking the question. And hopefully, the time will come that we will have more answers than questions. Now, regarding waste management, there are some positive developments that are brewing. It's reported recently that Cebu provincial leaders are exploring a shift from traditional waste disposal to high-tech incineration following a series of landfill crises and fact-finding mission to China. The move could reshape how one of the Philippines' most populous provinces manage environmental safety, public health, and power demand. In mid-February of 2026, the provincial board began formalizing a path towards waste to energy, or WTE technology. And joining us through Zoom is the planning head of Cebu province, Elizar Sabinay. So we'd like to check if he is already around. Sige. So while we are waiting for Ellie to actually kanang log in, no, in Zoom, just a refresher also to the viewers who are watching. There were several conversations also specific to WTE. In Beyond the Headlines, we asked the question that if we, because there were also resistance, no, about that technology, and we asked the question that uh, if we don't want WTE, then do we have a better suggestion? Because the waste issue remains to be piling. If we recall, after the tragedy, there was also a controversy that happened because the trucks shifted route to Polog Consolacion. And from what we gathered with our conversation with Councilor Garganera, there was not even a formal conversation between Cebu City Mayor Nestor Archival and also Consolacion Mayor Nene Alegado, no? But still, the good mayor of Consolacion allowed the waste, no, to be redirected from Binaliw, the waste of Cebu City to be redirected from Binaliw to Polog Consolacion, provided that the maximum cap for this will only just be 150 tons per day. And if we recall, Cebu's Cebu City alone is generating a total of 600 tons every day. So naay gap na 450. So the question actually remained because this is still January 8th and it's already February 18. So there is a daily deficit of 450 tons, approximately 450 tons deficit every day. That's been piling up since January 9, to be more exact, until today, which is February 18. So what happened to this waste and where were they disposed? No? Those are also still open questions, no? There were also conversations that were done in the past and then saying, no, that the city is making a good traction when it comes to waste reduction and waste segregation. But Councilor Garganero also said that for Cebu City to be able to cut its garbage generation to half in just 6 months is not very probable. Now, considering the experience in Yokohama, that it actually took them years just to reduce garbage by 30%. No, so he also highlighted that he wanted, and we all wanted, waste segregation to succeed. But unfortunately, in terms of probability, I think the odds are against it. No, so now, as mentioned earlier, we consider it as a positive development because the Cebu provincial government is already considering a path towards waste to energy. And finally, we now have him, no, in the show, at least remotely, and we would like to, and we're very grateful for his time. So we have the planning head of the province of Cebu. We have Elizar Sabinay Jr. Eli, good afternoon.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon, DJ. Good afternoon, everyone.
And thank you very much, because this is a last minute arrangement, but you still allowed us and made time for this very important conversation. So, Ellie, can you walk us through about the direction of the Cebu province, no, specific to waste to energy?
Yeah. We, as you know, the province of Cebu is really going to that direction. Again, that waste to energy is not a new technology. It's been there and it's been used by different countries. In fact, you mentioned a while ago that Yokohama is into waste to energy as well. So um, with that, and their waste to energy was done 25 years ago. And other developed countries as well is doing waste to energy. However, what we are doing now in the province of Cebu is not just limited to WT. There are a lot of proponents that we receive, private sector interested, both local and international companies willing to really help us here in Cebu. And as part also in preparation of the province, we identified two potential sites here in Cebu because we don't want just a half a solution, but if we can cover the entire island, the better. So we already identified two potential areas. We have one in Danao and also one potential in Minglanilla. And we're also looking on the west part. However, the aspiration of the province would be the waste to energy is just one. No, part lang siya sa solution because again, waste to energy ideally should be the one processing the residual waste. Segregation at source should be basic and fundamental, no, and it has been done, and Yokohama is doing it as well, no, and because they are good in along the way, they are good in segregation at source. In fact, some of the WTE plants in Yokohama is closing down because they are doing segregation at source effectively and efficiently. So in our end, learning from the past, learning from other countries such as Yokohama, what we do is we will do it at the same time. So there is WTE still, but there is also recycling, upcycling, segregation at source is very important because WTE requires, we call it quality waste. No? So really, not necessary siya na kay mix man na siya, but it should be a quality waste. No? So muna ginatanaw sa WTE. And there are a lot of technologies available now. But what we are doing in the province, as much as possible, it would be a combined, both the traditional and the new. The WTE would be the one processing it. But as much as possible, there would be segregation at source. And one of the movement of the province of Cebu in relation to segregation, recycling, upcycling is really to promote and launch a program which will be next month. Naunhan lang siguro na ako inform na we call it Clean Cebu campaign. Because right now, the problem of waste is not just really on the government alone. It's everyone is accountable to it. Everyone is responsible to it. And if you look at also in Yokohama, that's also the same model. No, they did not just provide WT, in fact, and it solved their problem. It's really also because what happened dito is nag-WT they realized they need to do segregation at source, no? So late sila, but learning from their experience, we will do it at the same time. So that's the goal of the province now. In fact, we are calling it instead of WT, we call it Green Transformation Park. where we can transform everything into green, no? And encouraging people to still segregate at source. But at the same time, this requires also a lot of investment from the local government units, from the province as well. That's why with the Clean Cebu campaign, we will start doing it by encouraging people, comprehensive IECs, providing trash bins with designated label, because it's done, especially in Cebu. Take, for example, Mandaue City. Mandaue City is doing recycling very efficiently because they have an intensive IEC, they have good uh, uh, ordinances as well. Enforcement is very strong as well, and the participation from the barangay to the purok level is very effective. But then again, why was it somehow not really seen? Because Mandaue City is just part of Metro Cebu, and the rest of the city is not doing it. No, so Mandaue City is doing it now, and they started with the recycling around, if I'm correct, 27% way back 2017. But right now, their recycling is around 75%. So they're very effective na good in terms of recycling. And ang maabot na lang sa landfill would be minimal. So from 100% waste from the house, because of their segregating at source, niya, all the plastics is delivered to a particular site in terms of recycling. Ang maabot na lang sa landfill is around 30% or 40% of the waste, which is a good initiative, and really the ideal way of solid waste management. Dili tanan dito padulong sa WTE. So WTE is right now is potentially one of the things that we are looking at in the province, because we have limited land, and landfill requires a huge land. No, landfilling is also requires not just a land but also the process, the entire itself. We need to look at sanitation, everything. But WTE requires dili po ikon gamay, 3 to 6 hectares, but it can process na a huge tons of waste. Currently, right now in Metro Cebu alone, that's the now city to Parker City, we're around 1,500 tons a day. If i-combine mo ang province of Cebu, more or less, if I'm correct, as of the present, we're around 3,000 to 3,500 tons per day. That's a lot, no?
That's
For WTE, that's basically 2 WT can accommodate it already. No, so that's what we're looking at. However, in terms of implementation execution, it will take time. It will take time. The construction itself, the implementation, the coordination will require minimum 3 years.
3 years.
Minimum 3 years. The preparation minimum 3 years. So I agree. I somehow leaning towards what Mayor Archibald is also saying. Segregation at source, no, and reactivation. It's not just the accountability of the citizen, but also the how can the government complement to it, like reactivating of their material recovery facility of every barangay, because every barangay is mandated to have MRF. So how is our MRF in every barangay? In fact, some of the initiatives being done now outside Cebu City, some local government units has their own MRF on a purok level. No, on a household of 20 households, they have their own MRF. That will really segregate waste, no, and will help people to do it, because there are already mechanisms, there are already systems in place. And mato sa landfill, from 100% waste, mato sa landfill nila 30% na lang to 40%. There is a huge cut of the overall waste that we have right now. So the direction, WT is still, but if we have mechanism that complements the need of the people in terms of segregating at source, because the pong potential, why does people throw pataka laglabay? Because there's no trash bin available, no? If you go over the city, if you go over other areas in Cebu City, tinuod some of the, especially young people, naanad na sila na ilabay ang ilang basura, because they're learning, no? Even students, ilabay silang bag, kaya wala may trash bin. But not all the time. So we need to look for proper trash bins na segregated po, recyclable, biodegradable, non-biodegradable, residual. So it's labeled ba? If in fact, if you go to Mandaue City and Danao City, ilang trash bin naka-label yun na by color, and that will encourage people to throw it properly. No, so, and it's available in every corner. If you go to Danao City, in every corner of the barangay, major roads, na yun ay trash bin in color yellow, green, and red. Yeah, nanay designation kung sa Manisya, kung sa may ilapay din na part. So that will encourage people to segregate sa ila pa lang na level, because naka-designate naman, no? So these are mechanism or system that we can do on our own level, even on the short term. Long term WTE, But please note, WT will not happen immediately. There are a lot of proposals being provided to the province. We're screening it now. Around 6 or 8 proposals already here, including the one from Yokohama. But one thing that we learned from their experiences is that WTE should be murag one of the solution, not the ultimate solutions. One of the solutions. Um, and solid waste management, it requires people's participation, requires everyone's participation. No, so how can the people and the government complement each other? So that's the purpose on why next month we will also launch the Cebu Clean Cebu campaign. It's a province of Cebu initiative in promoting and addressing solid waste management down to the household level to the province of Cebu. So as for WTE, right now we receive a lot of proposals, a lot from different international technology provider, and it's evolving. I mean, the technology available 5 years ago might be different now. No, so based on the projection, minimum could be 400 tons, 600 tons, 1,000 tons. In fact, Cebu City is producing 1,000 to 1,200 tons per day. No, Cebu City alone can have their own WTE. No, um, and yeah, so that's the process and progress right now. But for GovPAM and the province of Cebu, why wait for it? It will take time. So let's start now. How can we reduce the waste even in our household pa lang? No? And how can the government complement it? So one of the movement that we're doing in the province is we will be doing an environment summit focused on waste management. Really addressing, checking, mapping, asa magid ang problema, asa magid ang kulang. Is it really the citizen not participating, Cebuanos not doing it, or is it because the mechanism or the system is not in place? No. Okay, there are two things that we need to look at. We can't just blame people for throwing anywhere. Maybe there are also reasons and factor for it, and there are also factors and reason why just the government contract with private sector, okay, mas efficient, or why does the government don't install trash bins? Why does government enforcing this? So we will be doing it as part of our environment summit output, and hopefully we can identify the gap and how can we address the gap. And with that gap, we can provide interventions, holistic interventions that requires participation from the people. Short term, when you say short term, that can be addressed in just months. Medium term, maybe 9 months to 1.5 year. The long term would be 2 to 3 years. Maybe WTE would come. But yes, WTE is one of our medium to long term solutions. Also, this was identified in the Mega Cebu Roadmap 2050. This was endorsed under medium term solutions because part of the roadmap recommendation is really encouraging 3 Rs, no? Recycling, reduce, reuse, recycle. No, that's the short term because that's what we can do as a citizen. That's what we can do. And that. So, yeah, that's the update so far, DJ. As to the progress of it, maybe we can get progress a month after. We are still receiving a lot of proponents and interested parties on WTE. Dagan, ubay-ubay, because they want to help Cebu. But again, we would like to angle it na WTE is just one of the solution. And we would like still to encourage everyone. If Yokohama took them almost 25 to 30 years to address this, if we can combine the learnings from other countries, WTE, segregation at source, I think we can shorten it. It's just really doing it in a way that it addresses what is really in need now. And GoPam is looking at it in a way that it does not fits all. It must be looking at it in different angle, looking at different dimension, and how can we address it in a way that it comprehensively connected. No? Okay, because waste is also related to flooding. Waste is also related to our water quality. So lahat dagan siya connection ba? And even informal settlers, residential housing, dagan siya connection ba? So how can we address it in a way that is holistically, but in terms of implementation, it will strategically be implemented in just months. Things that we can do now, things that we can do in our household level, things that we can do in the purok level, things that we can do in the barangay level. Can we do it? Yes. There are models already, in fact, in Cebu. No, Mandaue is doing it. Danao City is starting doing it. So, and even other areas in the Philippines, Bayawan City is a good model. That a lot of people are going to Bayawan City because they're a good model. So it's not a concept or an idea. It's there. It's implemented. It's just really enforcing it in a way that we can do this. We
Mm.
can do this not just relying on the government interventions, but how can we help each other? No, how can we help each other? So yeah,
So,
that's the update on my
mm.
end, DJ. Yes.
And thank you very much no for those updates. Kanang if we recall manggod sad, kanang one of the hesitations in terms of segregation behavior is because some people would think na even if they will segregate at source, which is their homes, the impression manggod is when they go to the dump site, masagol na siya. But with WTA, as you mentioned, segregation at source is essential para ang ibatang na lang gid nato dito sa dump site, ang kato na lang yung dili ma-reuse ug ma-recycle. So that means it's
Yes.
encouraging
Yes.
the behavior.
Yep. And
Mm,
also not just WTE, but even recycling plant. In fact,
correct.
right now, what Mandawi City is doing, let me just share because I was also a witness of that transformation. Um, there is a recycling plant in Consolacion, a huge recycling plant. They started way back 2017. When they did with partner with Mandawi City, the recycling percentage of Mandawi was around 27%. No, so ang gibuhat sa kanina recycling plant is that they did a scheduled IEC even to the barangay level, then come up of ordinance ang Mandawi City that only TTH plastic ra gyud ang i-collect, no? Ang pag first year they're around 27%. I think this year, last year alone, they're now 75%.
Mm,
So that's the accomplishment pa. And the plastic waste goes directly to this plant. No? So okay na ta sa plastic waste. Ang remaining na lang that needs to be addressed. But
mm,
plastic waste is around 20% to 15 to 20% of the total waste. And that's a huge reduce of our
mm,
plant. No?
mm,
So ang clamor, I also talk with other LGU leaders, sir, it is costly. Mahal man kay because we were still giving tipping fee. And this is always my answer. If we want to have a sustainable, if we want to have, if we want to avoid same situation as Binaliw landfill now, same what happened to Binaliw landfill now, then we need to spend. We need to spend. Um,
mm,
we need to partner with, again, these guys are also paying their employees. These guys are also maintaining their equipments, no? So we need to spend, no? So in terms, if we want a sustainable city, if we want a sustainable province, then the government needs to invest. Kailangan yun, needs to invest yun. Needs to complement it with proper funding for it to be effective.
mm,
So dili pwede na pwede discounted. No, we need to invest because if we want to have a better future and avoid what happened to Binaliw landfill, then the government needs to invest, and that's what our governor is doing now.
mm,
He's willing to partner, even in fact, to if there is land, na private land, she's willing to purchase and acquire it. No, if ma-acquire lang na to, kaya wala na kita yuta, then we will do it
mm,
just for to address this waste management issue. No?
mm.
So, ana, kay the direction is if we want a sustainable Cebu, then it requires investment. It requires funding. So, yep,
And
yes.
yes, and Ellie kay murag kanang this is also kanang a positive development at least hearing from the updates. But what about specific to kay murag mao man gini ang question usahay no? What about concerns on public health standard no for WTEs? Was that also part of the conversation?
Yes, definitely. Um, Most of WTE now proponents are private sector, no, proposing something. This is what we can do. This is the possible. So this is that we have the most advanced technology. But the province of Cebu would not really look at it, but they are more keen on the standards,
Mm,
keen on the procedures. Because again, if this is a private-public partnership, the proponent has always the final say. No, it's really the government who has the final say. If the province of Cebu is the proponent, then the province of Cebu has always a final say. And the final say would be basing on the terms of reference requested to all proponents. It's not just limited whether you are. It's not just the requirements. It's not just limited whether you have the most advanced or not, but it's how compliant you are, how health conscious you are in terms of process, in terms of operations. Because learning from what's happening now, even though you have the most advanced, but if you don't have a high standard in terms of operation, procedural, making sure that my employees, the neighborhoods are healthy, the community is healthy, then it's still not enough. No, so the province is keen to that. The way we screen it is we check their previous projects. We check their previous activities. No, what are their existing program in the Philippines and abroad? How do they do it? What are the conditions so far? Were there any cases filed? Were there health cases filed? So the requirement for it in terms of operation, procedural health standards, compliance should be on the high and a maximum level. So yep. I hope that addressed your question, DJ.
Yeah. And thank you, Eliha, for making time over this conversation, because this is indeed a positive development for Cebu in general, no? For us to have several other facilities in terms of managing our waste, in terms of promoting segregation at source, and eventually also exploring the side, no, of WTE as one of the options for us to eventually have long-term solutions to the waste that we
Yes.
are
Yeah.
generating every day. Thank you very much
Thank you. Thank you.
and enjoy your lunch. So that was the planning head of Cebu Province, Elizar Sabinay Jr. So at least, no, 41 days after the Binalio tragedy, there is already something more concrete that's brewing, no? Because 36 lives were lost in Binalio. That, reality should never fade into just simply policy discussions or feasibility studies, no? If waste to energy is to become part of Cebu's future, then it must rise from the lessons of the tragedy, because innovation without accountability is simply repetition, and reform without transparency is risk. I'm DJ Moises, and this has been Beyond the Headlines. See you again tomorrow.